Okay, in today's video, I'm going to take a look at a clip from an interview from the Oprah Winfrey documentary made last year. A documentary that came out on Apple TV Plus called The Me You Can't See, in which she speaks to Prince Harry about his experiences with Meghan Markle and why they decided to leave the royal family and leave the country. I know this is an old one, but I feel like it's one that a lot of people haven't seen. I'd never seen it before, and it's just blown up on Twitter, so it feels like something that kind of went over people's heads. People didn't really take it in at the time, I don't think. And as ever, it's polarizing everyone on Twitter. Some people are taking it for face value, what Harry is saying, that they're taking his victim narrative. It is a victim narrative, whether it's true or not, of how the press hounded him and Meghan out of the country. Parallels he draws with what happened to his mother. It's quite emotional to watch, but as I said, it's polarizing because those of us that think Meghan is somewhat suspect, I think could see a lot of red flags here. It looks like narcissistic abuse. He looks like, Harry in this interview to me looks like a narcissistic abuse victim. Pop psychology! Okay, let me fill you in a little bit on my history with psychology. I did 2 years of A-level psychology. And for those of you who are not from the UK, who are not educated in the UK system, basically it's more or less a degree in psychology. It's less, a lot less. A-levels, that's not university. But I had potential. I could have been a great psychologist, perhaps the best there ever was. Yeah, I read all the classics. Read of all the classics. Freud, Jung, easy. Through the experimental psychologists, Skinner, Stanley Milgram, Philip Zimbardo. And what of my YouTube sensation contemporaries? Peterson, Pinker, come on. Dr. Todd Grande, shut up Todd. I'm not a pussy like Todd Grande. I'm gonna diagnose today. I'm gonna diagnose Meghan. He won't. He's like, I'm not making a diagnosis. I am. What would a degree in psychology give me that 2 years of A-levels didn't, eh? Once you've seen one Swedish sawmill, you've seen them all, kids.
That was the start of a learning journey for me. I became aware that I'd been living in a bubble within this family, within this institution. And I was sort of almost trapped in a thought process or a mindset. Within the first 8 days of our relationship being made public was when it said Harry's girl almost straight out of Compton. And that her exotic DNA will be thickening the royal blood.
I mean, who said tabloid journalism was classy? It's not good. I still don't feel convinced that that was the beginning of a racist tirade against Meghan Markle. I still think the reason people don't like her is for her personality. Sorry. It was a clumsy headline by a shitty journalist, probably, more than a racist attack. Not good, admittedly. Doesn't sound good. But the situation they find themselves in now, I don't think is the inevitable consequence of headlines like that.
You get followed, photographed, chased, harassed. The clicking of cameras and the flashes of cameras makes my blood boil. It makes me angry. It takes me back to what happened to my mum and what I experienced when I was a kid.
Yeah, I think that's all fair enough. Yeah, I can understand not wanting to be hounded by the press all the time and wanting to get out of the country and leave your royal duties behind. I can understand all of that. That's not my problem. I don't think most people would have a problem understanding that.
That's enough.
But it went to a whole new depth with not just traditional media, but also social media platforms as well. I felt completely helpless. I thought my family would help, but every single ask, request, warning, whatever it is, just got met with total silence or total neglect.
See, I've heard Meghan Markle complaining about the fact that when she joined the royal family, when she married Harry, that they took over her social media accounts and they said, this is how we do press releases and things like that. Sounds like there was a system in place to kind of avoid these problems, but you do have to kind of give up your celebrity status in a sense. I think with the royal family, you have to be stoic, you have to be perceived to be representative of something greater than yourself. In a way, you can't really be an individual. I understand that being difficult, but perhaps Harry's family understood that sense of duty. Perhaps they didn't explain it well enough to him, but I think that's what it entails. You know, when you're in the royal family, you can't be a famous person getting chased by paparazzi. You have to learn how to deal with that because it's inevitable. And if you can't deal with it, yeah, fine, get out. But don't make yourself out to be a victim when you just haven't ingratiated yourself with the public. In the case of Meghan Markle, she comes across as arrogant. Maybe you should have let the royal family deal with your social media posts and stuff like that if you didn't want that to be the case. I'm not saying it's easy. I wouldn't want to be in that position myself. I just don't buy this whole victim narrative. And you're going to see why in a minute. I think it's even worse than that in Meghan's case. I feel like Meghan is more manipulative. I feel like Harry's... It comes across as though Harry's innocent in a sense. Perhaps he's dependent on a woman like Meghan, needs a woman like Meghan. I feel she's manipulating him though, and it comes across that way certainly in the next couple of clips that we're going to see.
We spent 4 years trying to make it work. We did everything that we possibly could to stay there and carry on doing the role and doing the job. But Meghan was struggling.
So from about here in the video is where I find what Harry says really interesting. Meghan was struggling. They did everything they possibly could. It's odd. Meghan was struggling. Why was she struggling? And then it does get weird from here on in.
I think people have seen the photograph of us, squeezing each other's hands as we walked into the Royal Albert Hall in London for a charity event. She was 6 months pregnant at the time. What perhaps people don't understand is earlier that evening, Meghan decided to share with me the suicidal thoughts and the practicalities of how she was going to end her life. The scariest thing for her was her clarity of thought. She hadn't lost it. She wasn't crazy. She wasn't self-medicating, be it through pills or through alcohol. She was absolutely sober. She was completely sane. Yet in the quiet of night, these thoughts woke her up.
I guess here comes my most controversial take of the video, because anyone who supports Meghan who hears me saying this is going to be shocked by my insensitivity. I call bullshit. Not from Harry, from Meghan. I believe she said all of that. I believe she did have clarity of thought. She explained exactly how she was going to kill herself. Now, anyone who's been around diagnosed narcissists or has read up on narcissism, psychologists will tell you, I think, that sounds like an extremely narcissistic thing to do or say. Hours before an event, you tell in cold, sober detail, you tell your husband how at 6 months pregnant you're planning to kill yourself, right? And he's just said how they've been there 4 years trying to work things out. But suddenly when you're heavily pregnant and hours before an event, you say to him, no, I'm thinking about it. I'm really thinking about killing myself. Not crying, not emotional. And look at the picture. She certainly doesn't look emotional. She never does. It doesn't look good. That to me would be a massive red flag, albeit a little bit too far down the line when she's 6 months pregnant. What do you do then? It sounds terrifying. What I do know is there are two kinds of narcissists. There are the vulnerable and the invulnerable narcissist, and this sounds like an invulnerable narcissist. She doesn't really get too upset about things. She just thinks she's absolutely 100% deserving of praise, and she can get what she wants by any means necessary, essentially, because, well, who cares? She deserves it. That's what it sounds like to me. I'm not a psychologist, but that's what it sounds like.
The thing that stopped her from seeing it through was how unfair it would be on me. After everything that had happened to my mum, and to now be put in a position of losing another woman in my life, with a baby inside of her, our baby, I'm somewhat ashamed of the way that I dealt with it.
I think, honestly, Harry has led a very sheltered life and has just never met a person like Meghan before. It doesn't understand how manipulative people can be when you're not sheltered from reality. She explained to him that she didn't see it through because, it would be hard on him. That's why I didn't kill myself and your unborn child. It's because I didn't want to put you through. You remember what happened to your mum? That was pretty horrible, wasn't it, for you? You wouldn't want that to happen to you again, would you? Sorry, Harry, that's the way it's coming across. So if Harry ever saw this video, he'd hate me, right? But, sorry, mate. Maybe you don't have people around you telling you this stuff, but that's the way it comes across. And I think you're a bit simple, or you've led too sheltered a life to understand that there are people like that out there, and it's hard to realise that you're married to someone like that. Assuming all this is true, assuming that my interpretation is right, it sounds horrendous. It sounds horrific. And of course, the desired outcome for every narcissist is exactly that last thing that Harry said. That he feels ashamed that he hadn't dealt with it right, that he hadn't seen her problems beforehand. He felt responsible for what she was going through. Manipulation. She can then get him to leave the country, to leave his family, to go and sign Netflix and Spotify deals, if I'm being very cynical.
And of course, because of the system that we were in and the responsibilities and the duties that we had a quick cuddle. And then we had to get changed and I had to jump in a convoy with a police escort and drive to the Royal Albert Hall for a charity event.
Oh dear God, how did you manage? I have a degree of sympathy and quite a bit for Harry, actually, although I'm sure he'd find me a detestable, deplorable human being. I do have a degree of empathy for him. I feel more convinced than ever that Meghan Markle is a pathological narcissist. Be good to get Todd Granda to weigh in on this particular clip. I'd love him to get involved in this. I'd love him to analyse that anecdote. That'd be awesome. Him or anyone else, any other famous psychologist. Get this clip to them. Get this video to them.